All right, welcome, bienvenidos. On behalf of the project, I just want to say we are so excited to be in community with you all. We know there are so many places you can be tonight, so many other things you can be doing tonight. We're all being pulled in so many directions in addition to our personal lives. So it just means so much to us and fills us with so much hope and joy that you chose us. And I'd like to start before jumping into the, the Young Lords and the program here by acknowledging the land that I and others in Chicago currently occupy. I want to acknowledge the Kickapoo, Peoria, Potawatomi, and Miami nations for their reverence of the land and for their sacrifices. It humbles me, and I am grateful that it allows us to be here. And it's so connected to this project and why we're here. So, El Grillo en Arieto project is about truth telling. It's an intergenerational reading and writing community that centers Garimbeño stories of liberation, resistance, and joy. It's about decolonizing with words and stories in community. And I first experienced the power of words and stories as a middle school classroom teacher with my students at Tarkington. I know there's some Tarkington students, former teachers that I see here. And since I've left, I still long for a space to engage with stories. I believe they're healing. And I think at this point in my life, I'm at a space where I want to hear the Carimbeño stories. I want to hear my stories as a Boricua. And so the term griot, in case you don't already know, because this is really important, is from West Africa. And griots are the holders of people's stories. And they are so important because they help people know where they came from, who they are, and where they're going. And arietos are how the Taino come together in community to celebrate, to make meaning of life, and to tell stories. And that's where we are today, and what we need so much right now. And this is a space for liberation seekers and revolutionaries, regardless of where you are on your journey. This is a counter space to anti-Blackness, racism, colonialism, and as the abolitionist educator Bettina Love says, the spirit murdering of dark folks, especially those with other marginalized intersectionalities. Y'all, we could have taken the easy route and just screencasted this meeting today and just had you listen, but it was really important to us to not do that and to interact and be in community as much as possible. That also means that we might get a little messy with a large Zoom call, but we're okay with that. The project expects the best of you and knows that we will all rise to the occasion, but we do want to name some agreements that feel really important to us and we hope are important to you as well. So engage naturally. We love to see your faces, like, and connect, but like, do you and take care of yourself, and just be, right? There are no performances. Just come as you are because that's how we want you to be. Engage in co-generative dialogue. So hopefully we walk away from this space feeling like we're fuller, and our hearts are lighter than when we came in versus inquisitions. Share encouraging affirmation for each other, y'all. We need love. It's brave to like share stories. We're going to be in small groups later and sharing parts of yourself. It's scary. And so let's give a lot of love to one another and also protect the space and each other, interrupt toxic behaviors. We are all in that environment. So we just all need to be aware of that. A variety of thinking is necessary for learning and growing, but you have to be on the side of decolonization and liberation to honor this space of fugitivity. and safety and hope. Y'all, there is a community of the dopest people ever holding space for you today. They are fierce, they are brilliant, they come with so much love to heal. And y'all, this is a grassroots collective. Like, there's no money, there's no fame. it's it's a fire within to share parts of ourselves and bring people in. So you already know that, like, they're here for you. And just to quickly cover how we'll spend our time together, we're actually going to kick off with a panel, and even hear some audio of an interview that Johanna did with Chacha Jiménez. Then we're going to go into small groups. So we'll also be in smaller groups together, and Johanna is going to be spending time in each of the groups. We're going to come out and debrief all together, where we'll like engage in conversation. And then we'll also talk about like what's different when we leave today. And maybe some of us are already engaging in healing circles. I feel like you can never talk about that enough right now. So we'll talk about healing circles, and then we will be closing with some spoken word. But y'all, there's an after party with Sadie Woods is Afrodjia. And if you have not already heard her, you need to. So after the 2 hours, she will be spinning her magic and playing Afro-Caribbean Latin house music. So house music means something in Chicago, y'all. I know it's not the only place, but it means something. So we hope you can stick around. And if you're into social media, we have some hashtags here. That'd be great if you can connect them to the event, and we'll go ahead and chat those or add them to the chat. And so how did we get here? Well, it all starts with the book, right? Books have really played a huge part in my life. And it was when I decided to teach Puerto Rican studies to my daughters when the pandemic started that, of course, I needed to have a unit on the young lords. But I didn't know a lot about them, right? You know some things, but maybe not all of it. So I did my research, and there was a book that had just come out, and I was like, man, this author, she really seems like she knows her stuff, and she did a lot of research. So I bought it. And if you fast forward 2 months to one morning during the uprisings for Black lives and justice, I woke up and I realized that that pain and that agony and that despair that I was feeling, that there was something there I needed to pay attention to. And that was that in this book, there were blueprints for how to be and how to live right now. And they came from my peoples. Like, I woke up and I just shot out of bed and I was like, you know what? I'm going to email the author, and like, we've got to create space to talk about this. And so here we all are. And when Johanna wrote back, there was the sentence that shook me. She said, I wrote it for this moment. And it's why we're together today, and why we are centered around this question, the revolution within. In this time of uprising, who will you be? And it's a question that probably every human being is always asking themselves, but is being amplified in our spirits right now. And this is also what José Chacha Jiménez was asking himself when he was growing up in Chicago in the 50s and 60s. And he chose his path to stand up and fight for his community. And this newspaper photo was taken in 1969 when Lincoln Park residents took over a police station to protest the police's harassment of Chacha because of how he fought against urban renewal, also known as gentrification. They're a little different, but ultimately the same thing, and the displacement of Puerto Rican families in Lincoln Park. And I went to Lincoln Park High School, and when I look at this image and I think about like what it is now, that's like a history and a piece of again, like my people I never even knew existed. Cha-Cha became very close to Fred Hampton when the Young Lords joined the original Rainbow Coalition, which Fred Hampton started. And it was Cha-Cha's interview in the Black Panther Party newspaper that caught the attention of a group of young Puerto Rican first-generation revolutionaries who would go on to create their own branch in New York City. Boricua and Dominicana Nuyorican poet Sandra Maria Estevez has a poem called Here. And in it, she's recalling the beauty of the island of Boriquen. And she says, but that reality, now a dream, teaches me to see and will bring me back to me. And this coming back to self is what led to Cha-Cha's radicalization and became that lead domino for everything that the Young Lords would become and do. So we are going to spend some time now talking about that and the power of stories with my soul brother, Ernesto Saldivar Jr., who will be facilitating the panel. And this is a good time, and if you haven't already, to put your Zoom setting on speaker. Ernesto, hermano, it is all you.
Lily, hermana, thank you so much. Saludos, mi gente. Again, un aplauso para Lily for envisioning and creating this space for us tonight. I do want to echo some of the things that she mentioned in terms that it is spaces like this that truly help us build conciencia, a decolonized consciousness that helps us break away from the anger, the disappointment, and betrayal, as Johanna so eloquently wrote in her book, that we often experience in traditional Westernized educational spaces. So gracias. Thank you so much, Lily, for this again today. So again, my name is Ernesto Saldivar Jr., and it is my honor to be here tonight to present the panel, just working alongside with all these wonderful thinkers, to be in the presence of the author of The Young Lords, A Radical History, Johanna Fernández, educator, Noemi, and current students, Axel, José, and Ashley. Fun fact, Ashley is, así como pasan las cosas, right? Ashley was Lily's student in elementary school. She was my student in high school. And this event reconnected us all and brought us all together. So, ¿por qué estamos aquí? Why are we here? For me, as a Latino, as an educator, as a father, I believe in the power of knowing nuestras historias. Like many of us here, I do believe that ethnic studies is a way of life. It is love, it is liberation, it is empowerment. So, y ustedes, why are you here? Why are we here today? So, if we can take about 30 seconds and have each of our panelists speak to that question. ¿Por qué estamos aquí? We can start with, let's go with Ashley.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley. Everything Ernesto spoke about, everything Lily spoke about, it just means so much to me. I just want to say that I'm here because I really struggled understanding my identity growing up. I always felt like I was ni de aquí ni de allá. I'm not really close to my Mexican culture. So it was really hard for me to kind of understand that part of myself. But as I've grown, as I've, matured into a woman, I read a lot of texts. And I just feel like I'm here because I want young Latinx who might be lost to have that guidance to kind of unravel their history and their culture too. I understand that this is done by decolonizing those texts, by kind of claiming what's yours and making it yours again, making it whole. And yeah, I think it's really important for Black and Brown young folks to navigate their own historias in and outside of the literature.
Great, thank you, Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
Axel?
Hi, my name is Axel. I'm a student in high school, and like I know that we're all here today because of the shared experience of wanting to know where we're from and who we are. I'm from the Dominican Republic, but I have that same exact um just it's like a loss that we all have together. And yeah, I'm here to learn, and I'm here to just be with everybody else. I'm here for the people, my people, and yeah.
Thank you. Jose?
Hey everyone, my name is Jose. I'm a university student right now. I'm actually a senior in college. I'm looking to graduate this year. And I'm a part of this because I feel like, you know, in relation a lot to like what Ashley said, I struggled a lot with my identity as well. And I feel that over the past like 5 or 6 years, I've come to gain more and more pride off of it. And I think that I have found a lot of personal empowerment in learning about my people's history, learning about my people's story. And I think that that's an experience that so many people have missed out on. And I think it's awful because I feel like our stories and our history is something that gets denied. I mean, like, I don't remember learning anything about my people's history in schools or anything like that. And I think that that hinders our people. So I think if we're gonna move like pa'lante, if we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna be like better as a community, then we need to get together in community and learn these things. So that's why I'm here.
Powerful. Thank you. Noemi, my fellow educator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Noemi, and I think I'm here for a lot of different reasons. One, because as an educator, this was absolutely important and integral to what I was doing as an educator. And so working with students everywhere from second grade all the way up until 8th grade, it just was really important for me to really speak life into this Latinidad that they didn't understand often, that they didn't actually have words for a lot of the times, or that they were confused by. And so really being able to be a Boricua with a bunch of students who were mostly usually Mexican and Boricua, really, I think just gave a space for them to see themselves into a future that I didn't get to see myself into because I didn't have any teachers who looked like me. But I think beyond that, I also am here because I have 2 children that I brought into this extremely toxic world. And I just need to figure out how and what we can be building together so that the toxicity that that we all have struggled with in schools is not the only place for them, that they actually have other spaces where they can really see themselves and to build with. And to build actually with love and care and freedom at the soul and center of who they're choosing to build with. So I'm here to build.
Thank you. Thank you. E. Johanna.
Thank you so very much. You all got me all emotional right now. And listen, I've given a million talks on the Young Lords over the course of my academic life. I'm here because of Lily Cruz, who is an incredibly special educator who has brought a village together to explore our roots and to explore the possibilities of resistance in this period. I became enamored with the Young Lords many years ago because I saw myself in their story. The Young Lords were the children of migration. And they were part of a generation of Puerto Ricans that grew up in New York in the post-war period when a third of the people of the island of Puerto Rico settled in cities like New York and Chicago. And the children of that migration were the go-between. They were the translators. They were forced to become adults to translate for their parents at the hospital and at the school and at the supermarket. And they grew up in urban centers gripped with poverty and crisis. And that was my story, even though I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm Dominican. But I'm also here because understanding Chicago was my biggest challenge and my most transcendent joy. I'm from New York, and I wrote a full chapter on Chicago, and Chicago is just not an easy city to wrap your head around. And I've always said that my favorite young lord, and as you know, the young lords are the Puerto Rican counterpart of the Black Panther Party, is José Chacha Jiménez, the leader of a street organization called gangs, which that's a distortion of what they were, who transformed that street organization into a political organization, a revolutionary organization. And in that process of transforming the organization, he encountered his most indigenous self. And I've been listening to his interviews, which we're going to hear from later. And I'm like emotional just listening to them. He is an incredible human being, who's also humble, approachable, and just real. And I'm just honored to have been able to spend so many hours exploring the history of this organization with him and so many others.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing that. And I think what's really important is, you know, el poder de nuestro why, right, is vital to our own collective consciousness. And I think, you know, being able to learn from Chacha and the others in the history of Chicago that help create the Young Lords and the power that they represent today, I think is really important for us to take into consideration, right? With this in mind, I think one thing that really brought me back to myself, that really brought me back home, was reading the section when he's becoming a young lord on page 22, when he talks about his schooling experiences. You wrote, at school, Chacha's teachers, including many of the pastors, called him Joseph rather than Jose, a point that he remembers with shame because he didn't resist it. Racism in the school came in different forms. This really helped recenter me, and you know, just really thinking about you know, all the collective work that we did to be here today, to be present today, I think is something that helped give me some solace during a time in history where, you know, in the world of COVID, in the world of police brutality and abuse, right? But just thinking about the idea that racism comes in different forms in school, I think is something that's really powerful. And it's a powerful statement because it helped center me again and reminded me as to my own purpose and why I do what I do and the work that I do. I used to be in the classroom as a teacher. I have now transitioned to where I'm working more with organizations, with systems and structures, so I can then help rebuild and help transform the systems that have been historically racist and oppressive against our people, and reimagine them and rebuilding them so they can be much more inclusive, right? And the idea and the power of the name, this reminded me of my own baby, right? And just kind of like thinking about the power and the beauty of knowing our history, right? When Ariana was in second grade, you know, we call her Ariana. Her teacher called her Ariana. And she's, as a second grader, she stood up for herself and she said, you know, my name is Ariana. It's not Ariana. And the teacher apologized. You know, the teacher tried to pronounce it to the best of her abilities, but just knowing the fact that my baby was able to stand up for herself in that capacity, right, because of what she's been exposed to, I think is something that's very, very powerful. So in your readings, in your understanding of the novel, of the book, what about Cha-Cha stories, or what about the young lords themselves helped you redefine yourself or come back home to yourselves? Maybe we can hear from one of the students first.
I think I'll go ahead and I'll start. I think something that I read about Cha-Cha's story that keeps always like I always come back to was there was a period in his life where he had to get sent back to Puerto Rico. Well, not sent back necessarily, but like sent to Puerto Rico. He had lived with some family over there. And while over there, he had experienced this kind of awakening within himself. And he had said in the book that is when he went to Puerto Rico in handcuffs is when he became Puerto Rican, you know, and he saw that the culture was different there, the land was different there. And he mentioned about his different experiences with the law. You know, Chacha had gotten into a lot of legal trouble back in the United States. You know, he had gone to jail here and there. And he had mentioned how he never went to jail in Puerto Rico, how things were always handled within the community, you know, how that the people are so much more communally minded over there, you know, and it was like this thing that clicked in him, that this like internalized self-hatred that he had before was now starting to disappear. I think it was like his first step into becoming more revolutionarily minded. And I think that that sticks out to me a lot from his story.
I'd like to add the part about like in page 78, they talk about the flag and like what the flag means to them. And the book reads, the Puerto Rican flag held many meanings for Puerto Ricans. To many who migrated as adults, the flag was closely linked to nostalgia for the homeland and the burdens of the working class lives. The flag was prized possession and endangered symbol of struggle. The flag was a symbol of pride and resistance to the psychic violence that they had borne silently in schools and in streets at hands of the police, an experience of racialization they shared with their Black American peers. And I found those quotes very reminiscent to me because like me being Dominican, like you can really relate when you're a descendant of a people and you know that you come from some place, and the fact that the Puerto Rican flag is like a symbol for Puerto Ricans when they come here and they have to try to best assimilate, lose the accent, lose some of the things that Americans might find weird, but still like you keep that village mentality under this identity. And I just found that like so important that when you leave, you still know that you have a people to go back to. You have a family, really, like this village, this entire idea of a village. I think it's just so important to keep.
I'll go next. Something that really always speaks to me about Chacha's story is how he, at first, when I guess his mom, like, you know, she's kind of pushing for him to become a priest. There's a quote on page 23 where the book says, Chacha believed that Doña Eugenia was woefully unequipped to understand his world, let alone mediate its challenges. And then later on, there's a quote from James Baldwin that says, the most private, the most serious thing this does to the subjugated is to destroy his sense of reality. It destroys, for example, his father's authority over him because his father has no power in the world. Later on, a couple pages later on page 31, there's a mention of double consciousness. I first understood double consciousness in high school with Saldivar, who kind of exposed this to us. And he's like, no, like you kind of have to, I think we were reading a Toni Morrison book at this point, and he was alluding to the fact that, you know, as people navigate their stories, they kind of have to grasp their humanity again. They have to reclaim what's theirs, and they have to kind of dismantle the system that dictates who they are and what they're supposed to be, and they make it who they're actually supposed to be. You know, they blossom through that, through all of that self learning and growth. And that's something that always speaks to me because you know, I've had to battle generations of generational trauma with my family, and it's really hard to kind of like navigate that at such a young age and also understand who you are later on. But yeah, reading that in Chacha's story always like, it brings me back to me because I know that's an integral part of my story.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing that. You know, just the idea of understanding the collective the collective that's needed for us to thrive, right? And just like under even the identity of La Bonita Bandera, right? Que bonita bandera, like, you know, and that unifying symbol that connects us all. And thinking about like what you just mentioned, Ashley, in terms of like even thinking about like the cultura, the same cultura that anchors us in a way that's healthy, can also anchor us in a way that's also holding us back and traumatizing to some aspects, right? So I would like to hear from Noemi, perhaps, if you can share with us a little bit in terms of like what part of the book helped redefine yourself, or helped bring you back home.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to read the section in the book, and I'll just share it out loud. Chacha grew up believing that his light skin conferred on him social advantage, but the prejudice he witnessed against his family and friends gave way to internal conflict, confusion, and guilt about his own internalized sense of privilege. It didn't help that his Puerto Rican and Mexican descended friends called him Casper the Friendly Ghost, mocking his white skin. And I literally, as you were talking, Ashley, I was just thinking to myself, like, the thing that I feel like I got from Chacha's story from this book was just that affirmation again, that we are in constant movement and as we understand our identity, that we aren't ever like fully knowing and fully understanding it, and that there are constant changes that we experience throughout our life that help us to understand who we are, especially who we are in this particular world, very differently. So how I understood myself as a Puerto Rican when I was in high school is very, very different than how I understood myself as a Puerto Rican when I ended up at a predominantly white institution at the university, which is also very different when I then became responsible for the education of children, which then became even more different when I had my own children, right? And like that evolution of understanding who we are is just, I think, again, affirmed in his own story as we saw him evolve in understanding who he was as a Puerto Rican, and even his understanding of how his skin, right, how he appears, how his physical appearance impacted how he believed to be able to be part of a Puerto Rican community, and how that impacts all of us, right? Like the ways that our skin tone or our hair texture, or even like our ability to speak or not speak Spanish impacts how it is we see ourselves in relationship to our communities, and, you know, specifically in my case, the Puerto Rican community. But I think what's most critical is like that we don't allow white supremacy to tell us that it's a fixed identity, that we actually remind ourselves that we are constantly in movement around that.
And that's a beautiful way of segueing into listening to Chacha's evolution, right? So we're going to transition into the audio. And I think one of the key things that you had mentioned, right, in terms of like looking at Chacha's evolution, the Young Lords themselves emerged in 1959 on the borders of two neighborhoods in the near North Side and West Lincoln Park. So anyone who is familiar with Chicago knows that that neighborhood is completely different today than what it was in the 1950s or 60s. And so in the end, you know, Chacha being part of this organization was more of a matter of what Johanna wrote. It was a matter of taking control of his own life, right, in the words of Chacha. So we are going to transition now into listening to his audio and hearing his own evolution story. Okay, while we listen to the audio.
Can I introduce it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So that people know what they're listening to.
Sure.
So Chacha Jiménez was arrested at the time of the riots in Chicago in 1968 in the aftermath of Martin Luther King's assassination. So he literally was swept up for different reasons. And he's talking to me about his time in prison. And I'm trying to figure out like what radicalized you, like what was it that happened that led you to decide that you were going to go from being a member of a gang to being a member of a revolutionary organization. What you should know is that his cousin, who's a Black Puerto Rican and Afro Puerto Rican, was also in prison with him. And so he references his cousin, and at some point he references that because his cousin knew the librarian who was part of the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Islam didn't look at him as a blue-eyed devil. So I'm just giving you some context so you know what's going on. And before we move forward, I have to acknowledge that Sandra Riaño cut this audio, and cutting an audio from a 2-hour interview is a lot of work. It took her all day. And I just want to tell you who Sandra Riaño is and acknowledge all the work she did. Sandra Riaño is a documentarian, student of 20th century history, and an eldest immigrant daughter. Born in Colombia and raised on Long Island to working class parents, her politicization sprang from the xenophobia she witnessed cleaning houses with her mother. Sandra began studying the Young Lords Party at Nassau Community College under the mentorship of Dr. Miguel Alonso, finding comfort in a group of Puerto Rican radicals in which her experience was reflected. 4 years later, under the mentorship of Dr. Johanna Fernández, Sandra continues her study of the Young Lords, who have taken a center stage in her world. She would not have it any other way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Johanna, for that introduction. On the screen, you'll see a picture of Chacha, Jiménez himself. And then as we listen to the audio, this would be a perfect opportunity for you to chat any questions that you may have that you would like to address with Johanna Fernández.
So, okay, tell me about your politicizing experience. How were you to become political in prison? I want to understand your process. You might not have thought of it as political, but you were reading. What were you reading? What were you thinking when you were reading?
Thomas Merton, I'm thinking I'm a hermit, a monk. Mm-hmm. I'm in the hole. I'm in a cave. It's a cave. The cave that they teach you in liberal studies. Uh-huh. I'm in the cave. I'm in the dungeon. I'm the victim. Uh-huh. I'm the victim. Yeah, I'm in the cage in the dungeon. And I need to get enlightened to get out of here. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking like that. I'm thinking like someone in the cave with Thomas Merton. Martin Luther King, I'm thinking like the Christians, the lions, being fed to the lions as a victim and stuff like that. Malcolm X, I'm thinking this is a bad motherfucker. I'm a gangbanger. And I can be a gangbanger and still be a bad motherfucker and fight for my people. I can be myself. You know, that's what I'm thinking. And then Panthers, for sure, I can be myself. They're just like me. Mm-hmm. So I'm going from one stage to the other. It's a process of development.
Tell me about your politicizing experience in prison. What was it that changed your mind, that made you political? What did it mean for you to become political? What did that mean to you as you were reading?
Or as I'm reading, no, I'm just reading. I don't know that I'm becoming political. Mm-hmm. I'm just reading, and I'm seeing injustice. The migrant workers, they're bringing them in, the elite, so-called illegal aliens. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking, they're Latinos like me. So the black guards and the white guards are pushing them. You know, we're going, hey man, leave them people alone. Why you fucking with them people? You know, them people ain't doing nothing to you. You know, they just don't speak any English. You want us, we'll translate. I'll translate. Mm-hmm. You know, leave them people alone. And I'm not the only one saying that. Some of the other inmates are saying the Spanish, you know. So So I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing the guys pushing Spanish people, and they're black and white, and they're doing that. So I'm seeing that they're coming in, but we're in the cell house, so they got to come in, and then they ask them questions right there. They shake them down and ask them questions.
The African American writers.
Right, and the Latinos first, and the African Americans are coming through. So.
And why were the farm workers arrested?
Because of yearly raids, an annual raid. They did that annual, and they put them through there.
Okay.
And take a few to make a big case for the TV.
Right. Okay.
So, but I mean, I know that now. I didn't know that then. So then I'm translating, and I'm reading the books at the same time and all that. You know, let me tell you something. Como a ti te va a gustar esto, porque a ti te gusta lo africano. This cop, this is the most insulting thing that can happen to me, degrading thing. Because remember, I'm thinking I'm a Puerto Rican. I don't see myself as light skinned, as white or anything. I don't see myself as that. I'm just natural from the neighborhood. I have no perception, no knowledge, no other thing outside of me.
World.
I'm just like what it is, and I'm living my life. It's my world. It's just life. I'm not thinking, I'm not analyzing nothing. So I'm in the jail, and I'm just like I've been in jail half of my life already. You know, so this is just another time, you know, I'm in there doing 60 days, I get out of here soon. One day, this one black guard, so he gets up and he decides to pick on me out of anybody. And then he says, oh, you're fake. You're trying to act like you're black. You're not black. And I'm going like, what the fuck is wrong with this motherfucker? To myself. I'm not bothering this guy. I'm not, you know, what the fuck's wrong with him? You're not black, you're just trying to pretend like you're black. I get stunned. I'm not expecting him at all to come out of nowhere, out of the sky blue. So while he's telling me off, the whole place is silent. And that's making me even more embarrassed, because I know everybody's listening to this motherfucker. So he's just telling me off like 10 minutes. I mean, it felt like an hour. I don't know how to answer him back, because he's got me all messed up. I don't know what these other people are thinking. I'm hurt because I'm thinking I'm one of the crowd, and this guy just took me out of the crowd. You know what I'm saying? That's really the big hurt. So I don't say anything. I want to say something. I'm trying to figure out how am I going to say something to this guy? But I'm stunned. I can't even think. All of a sudden, one of the black dudes said, shut the fuck up, you pig. Yeah. And everybody else, yeah, shut the fuck up, motherfucker. So they defend me. So that part felt good, but it still stunned me. You know. So so that really had an impact on me there. Wow. I'm a fucking Puerto Rican. Why am I being treated like this? Right. I think that got me more determined that I needed to do something for my community. I felt that they don't understand who we are. You know what I'm saying? We need to educate people on just who we are. You know, we're in the same boat, but you know, they don't understand. That was one thing. I felt a need that we needed to educate people about Puerto Ricans, about Latinos and that. So that's what I think, I felt that need to educate people about us, that people didn't know who we were, that we didn't fit in here, we didn't fit in there, we needed to have our own identity. So then I'm dealing with identity, right? Because this guy just called me a white boy. Right. I'm going, oh, I'm a white boy, but I'm not. You know, I know I'm not a white boy. I'm thinking, you know, I'm part of the in crowd. This guy's trying to take me out of the in crowd. I felt so good when, but I felt bad. I mean, I was still, even though this guy defended me and my cousins and all these other people, you know, because they joined in, you know. They told his ass off. I mean, you know, you fucking pig of that shit. So, but I'm still hurt.
What is this hurt? What is this hurt thing que tú me estás hablando a mí? Dime.
Yo estoy sufriendo. I'm suffering so much.
You're suffering. No, but you this comes up. How is it that you are? Were you sensitive growing up? Because you're a gangbanger.
I'm a victim. The victim role I played well.
Huh?
I played the victim role well.
What do you mean?
Well, that's my best role. Is the victim. You know, this is Bobby Seale's role, right? The victim. You know, he's handcuffed to the chair. So I naturally, before he even came up with that, I was playing that anyway. So that's the victim. You're being victimized as a people. So that's what I'm saying. That's the role that I've played, but then also the victor. From the victim, you become the victor. You know, I guess. Victor. You're right. So I learned later to play that role better.
That role.
That's more important of the victor. Don't tell me how we're being hurt. Tell me how we're gonna get out of this shit.
And what else? Any other conversations you have? You mentioned that you had a clash with the NOI guy who was giving you the books.
Oh,
the librarian.
So we're talking, and he's talking political to me, you know.
No, go ahead.
So he's talking political to me.
The NOI guy, the librarian.
I mean, he's kind of interested. He's trying to educate. He's doing organizing. And you know, I'm not realizing what he's doing. He's trying to organize, but he's not trusting me. You know, me está mirando me. You know, I know you look like a blue-eyed devil to me, but you are related to this other guy, and maybe we can talk. At least the other guy's not talking political, but you are. See, my cousin wasn't talking political. He's just a gangbanger. I mean, he's just an inmate, you know. But so this guy's saying, you know, I'm actually talking political to him, I guess. I'm asking him questions about, well, what do you think about this or whatever. I don't remember our conversations, but we were talking about the book. You know, you like this book or, you know, whatever, you know. I don't even know if maybe he recommended the book. So he might have recommended Malcolm X to me. I don't think I knew who Malcolm X was until I read the book.
You didn't know who he was until
No, I didn't know who he was, no. I know Martin Luther King.
You knew Martin Luther King.
So maybe I said, you know, let me read Martin Luther King, and then I think maybe he said, well, let me suggest this book.
Right.
Because they, you know, they took it to their head. They really thought that they're, you know, they're librarians.
Right.
You're an inmate, motherfucker, just like me.
Right.
They gave you this job. You're lucky you're out, you know, of your cell. You know, but he thinks he's a librarian, so he's suggesting books maybe.
Right.
Because now that I come to think about it, I didn't know who Malcolm X was. I knew Martin Luther King. I didn't know who Thomas Merton was. You know, it's a religious book. I want to get, you know, my life back together. I come out of jail wanting to reorganize the Young Lords, and the gang is not together. And we know that the importance of meetings, the gang will not stay together unless you meet.
You were telling me you don't understand that when you're a leader of the gang, you're always trying to figure out how to pull it together.
Even today, I'm still. This is what I'm working. I'm trying to unite. I'm trying to unite Chicago and New York, even today.
What do you think fuels that inside of you?
Because I know I want to free Puerto Rico, and I know if I'm going to free Puerto Rico, we have to be united. I was already thinking I want to organize something like the Black Panthers. So we're doing a service to the Puerto Rican independence movement by putting the Young Lords together.
So, can you hear me? I'm wondering if there are any questions. This interview is a lot longer, it's a lot richer, but we couldn't, of course, do more than this in 10 minutes. I'm wondering if there are any questions about the audio. Cha-Cha was an unconventional leader. He didn't have a big personality. He was understated, self-effacing, and hilarious. And he organized the gang and its transformation with humor, literally. And he's loved by everybody. So I remember when I showed up in Chicago to interview the Young Lords, I'm like, I need to interview you guys separately because, you know, this is going to be too crazy. And they were like, no, no, absolutely not. We need to check his story. We're going to interview, you're going to interview all of us, or you're not going to interview anybody. And what I learned, because as you know, migrants tend to disassociate themselves from African Americans because migrants are strangers in the United States. They have enough to deal with. And the last thing they're going to do is make common cause with the most demonized people in American society. They don't want any more problems. And they carry, many of them, a kind of middle-class respectability. And I think that we wouldn't be talking about the Young Lords today had the Young Lords not made common cause with the most iconic organization of the 60s, which was also the most demeaned, the most persecuted, the most maligned organization of the 60s, the Black Panther Party. But what I understood finally is that it took a street organization of Puerto Ricans who were becoming politicized to say, yes, we are them and they are us, and we're going to make common cause with the least of these. And that's one of the most inspiring things to me. Now, you probably know about the New York Young Lords, who are very well known. They, we'll leave it there. But there was a group of Puerto Rican students and also African American students here in New York who wanted to figure out what to do. They were looking for a revolutionary agenda. And they were meeting in East Harlem, and they were even reading the newspaper of the Black Panther Party. They were the first among their peers to be able to go to college, and some of them dropped out in order to join the movement and build the revolution. But those upwardly mobile Puerto Ricans didn't think of making common cause with the Black Panther Party. It took this organization of, by the way, Puerto Rican and Mexican youth to make the move, and that made all the difference. And of course, we know that the Young Lords, they called themselves revolutionary socialists, and they also, their objective was to amplify the quiet colonial project of the United States in Puerto Rico and to liberate the island of Puerto Rico. Among the other campaigns they launched against police terror, for better schools, and an enormous amount of work around issues of health. They wanted to bring to urban centers like Chicago and New York the model of door-to-door preventative health care that was successful in Cuba in the aftermath of the Cuban Revolution.
Thank you, Johanna, so much for sharing, for the audio. It just makes me want to go kick it with Cha-Cha. Just like
totally.
Hear his stories, like hear more stories. I do want to transition us though to small groups to continue the conversation. So we're going to actually be in small groups for 25 minutes. And this is going to be a time to continue to have conversation, this time amongst each other. There are going to be 2 facilitators from the El Grillo and Arieto project there. And Johanna will be spending time in each of the groups throughout this time. So I am going to go ahead and open up those rooms now. And please let your Grillo and Arieto people know if you need anything, and we are here for you. So folks are making their way back. Hope there was some good conversation and groups. I know there was. I don't hope. I know there was. And Just want to find Johanna because she is going to.
Yeah, I'm
lead.
here.
There you are. All right. She's going to lead a whole group debrief, and this would be a great time. Like, you can chat questions, but also you can get off mute and let's continue the conversation.
So yes, so we like to hear what were some of the most poignant elements of the discussion, and I went into all of the groups and everything was amazing. I mean, it was amazing for me to hear this discussion. And I mentioned in the last group I was in that I give these talks to all kinds of different groups, but I've been so emotional because this is the first time that I'm giving a presentation, and I haven't given a presentation, we've had a conversation, to people for whom this history means something profound and individual. Yeah. Any reactions or questions? Any reactions? Anyone want to speak on what moved you?
I can speak up for a little bit. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm really moved by all the stories that have been shared. Like for so long, I've been the only Puerto Rican in my community and like my neighborhoods and my schools and things like that. And so I would share my stories, and often it would be a window for people. They see right through it and they don't understand. And for once, I feel that I'm reflected back. Like there's so many stories that are mirrors that we all see a little bit of ourselves in other stories. And I felt really moved by that. And for once, I felt a sense of belonging and community. And it's amazing to feel.
Thank you, Jiménez. Anyone else? So I'm thinking of, that's really profound. Like, we need to be seen. Like, as human beings, we need to be seen, but children need to be seen. And we were not seen as children, right? So in many ways, we're healing as adults or young adults a wound that is old from our childhood. This is the fallout of colonization. Anyone else? We're remembering who we are. So powerful, yeah, totally. I mean, profoundly revolutionary. Anyone else want to share?
This
Yeah,
is,
something.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, for me, this is the first time that I've been in community with others who have also like deeply reflected on the young lords and what they meant to them. I think like within the academy, there were already so seldom people like scholars who knew who the young lords were, and I was talking to myself or like reflecting amongst myself, and I realized like how emotional it can get and speaking with community about it. And I really appreciated having had that space today.
Thank you. By the way, that's the woman who made the magic with the audio of Cha-Cha. Sandra Riaño. Thank you. It is very emotional, and I don't even know why. Like I'm like crying here. I'm trying to figure out like what's so emotional about this. Because I've been living with this for a million years, and I'm like coming together with you all is now bringing out the emotion.
May I share something?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Irene. I live in Seattle. I'm from Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. And I think the shared emotion for me is I grew up low income. I had to move here. My parents moved here when I was 9. They had already gone through really rough backgrounds, like kind of the stuff you see on a movie. And I was born out of that. Mom had me at 16. They went to Job Corps. They met there. In 2000, and excuse the noises in the background. In 2001, they kind of started talking about moving away from Puerto Rico because they saw everything going on with 911. They were very lonely on the island. They saw how the government was moving. And so they said, we're going to go to the mainland where there is like-minded people, blah, blah, blah. So we came out here. We lived in shelters. So I lived in shelters for about 11 years. I first heard of the Young Lords at an alternative high school. So I had never heard of them in Puerto Rico. I had never heard of them through my regular high school, even though for so long I was in low-income programs. So like when you're staying at a shelter, you're introduced to different arts classes, or you have advocates there who are also activists sometimes, but those things didn't come up. So when I was at my high school, we talked about the Young Lords. It stuck with me a bit, but it didn't. I was a teen and I was partying, and so I didn't really look into it further. So I go back to the beginning of, George Floyd, and that's not where the movement starts, and I'm aware of that, but it did kind of trigger an interest for me to really look in the background a bit more intensely. And I remember, doing research, and I came across Johanna's books and some other literature. And so from there, I began connecting with people. And even I'll share the story with Jiménez. Is that how you say it, Jiménez? Where we met at a protest here in Seattle. And, I was actually telling people about the Young Lords because a lot of people don't realize that, in order to learn about the history of, Black history, Puerto Rico is part of Black history, and it's a strategical colonizational point. There's just so much history there. And if you think about it too, and I'll end really quickly, if you think about Puerto Rico and its placement and how mixed people are, and how we're still in this weird limbo, like it's so confusing. And I understand Puerto Ricans that look all kinds of ways feel so confused because we're still in a limbo and we're still used. We're still a testing site. We were bombed, the highest concentration military, like all that is so confusing, and we're still working through that trauma. And so, yeah, right now I'm connecting with people such as Jiménez and telling stories as best as I can. I don't know everything, but it shouldn't take a big organization or a big name to say, hey, we're going to get together. You can tell history and you can learn things. And so, sometimes I find that people wait too much for the right time to do stuff. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to talk about it as much as I can because we need to hear those stories. And that's how I connected with somebody else. So that's it.
It's a way of coming together for sure. I think we need to transition now to the next part of this event. So I'm going to hand it over to our next facilitator.
Thank you, Johanna. And I was like, this conversation is going. I felt like I didn't want to pop in right now for this last piece, but I am actually really honored to be here and happy to be in community with everybody. And thank you to Lily and everyone who's put this event together. This has been dope, and I'm looking forward to more of these. I want to talk briefly about healing and healing engagement, and really about this concept of radical healing, which it's interesting because Lily, when she invited me to come talk about some of the healing-based work that I do and around with racial healing circles and radical healing practice for our communities, in thinking through this, I was thinking through this in advance, and then and what I thought was gonna happen did happen, which is like, we are already in the space and process of doing what I was gonna talk about, the process of doing, which is this concept of healing and radical healing work, right? And this process of really acting on our environments in ways where we're going towards the common good and having this framework that is political by nature, right? Thinking of like what radical healing actually means. It's political by nature, it's collectivist by nature, and it centers the voice of the folks who are doing the healing work and creating space for belonging. And we are literally doing all that today, just in the reading of this book, and in the discussion that we're having, and in the way that we're amplifying the history of the Young Lords and Puerto Rican culture, and telling our stories, and this idea of remembering and bringing those stories and histories, right, into our present day experience on October 7, 2020, right? Like we are doing the work of radical healing. Like, I don't have to talk about it as a construct, as some theory, or as some theoretical thing that this is what it looks like, because we're literally already in that work. We're doing the work and the practice of it. And even when I think about the title of this, right, of the revolution within, who will you be, right? Part of this healing work is internal work. I always say, like, healers heal themselves and they help heal others, but that healing yourself, right? It's about that internal work. So even within the title, this is just already a healing event, is essentially what I'm trying to get at, right? I'm here to talk a little bit about healing practices and how we use circles to facilitate healing. And that's one tool, one strategy for healing. But just by virtue of this space that's been created and been cultivated, and what we've been bringing up and what we've been sharing in our large group breakouts, or excuse me, in the large group discussion, in our small group breakouts, like we already are doing the work of healing without it having to be named as radical healing. It is what it is. We are practicing it, right? But it really is already being done. When we think about radical healing, it's really asking us to consider, or rather, it's asking us, demanding of us, I would say, radical healing and healing justice are really thinking of, instead of what happened to you, what's right with you, right? And thinking about how are we agents in the creation of our own well-being, rather than victims of circumstance, victims of events, victims of white supremacy, of colonization, of racism, of capitalism. And it's like, yes, those systems exist and have impacted us, but that those systems alone don't define us. We are defined by the strength, by the collective strength we have, right? As people to move towards a healing centered approach that is rooted in collective hope, that is rooted in a shared vision of what could be as opposed to what it is, right? And so the other piece that I really just kind of, in the brief amount of time I have to talk about with some of this radical healing that I touched on at the beginning, is that radical healing by nature, three things: political. We often think about healing as this individual experience. Johanna, when you popped into our breakout room, you even alluded to this briefly in some of the dialogue you had with the members of our breakout room, of that we are all that we often make this an individual thing, when it's a collective experience, right? When we think about the systems of oppression that are impacting us, if we are being affected them, and we're affecting them collectively. But when we talk about the political aspect, it's not enough to just do the work of healing, to create space like we're doing right now, right? We're doing this piece right now where we create space, and this is half of the work. The other half, though, is, and I know folks are already talking about this even came out in our breakout room, of like, what are other things I'm going to be doing or want to do? It's political by nature, because if all we're doing is healing from spaces that have caused us harm, and institutions and policies and practices, without actually dismantling those institutions, policies, and practices that have caused us harm, then it's incomplete work, right? So that's what I mean by this work being political. It's not just about us taking the time to do our own healing and doing our own healing work with each other. It's also thinking about, what am I healing from exactly? I'm healing from colonization. I'm healing from racism, from white supremacy, from capitalism, from patriarchy, from whatever it is, these intersections that we're dealing with, right, that are causing us harm. We're not just trying to heal from those. We're gonna dismantle those and reimagine and create in solidarity together, which brings into the second component. And again, this whole dialogue is a framework of radical healing. Like, we are just, this could be a radical healing seminar right here, in terms of just like how you actually construct the space for radical healing. Because it's also collectivist in nature. Again, we don't do this work individually. I am not the only person who needs healing work. You are not the only person, right? We are collectively going on this healing journey together because we are stronger together and because it is in our ancestral way of being, right? This individualist notions that we have in the United States especially is very much like capitalism and white supremacy messing with us, right? And having us act in ways that as my friend, my boy, my brother Terrence likes to say, it shows that the conditioning is working, right? Because we have to decondition our minds and decondition our way of being to be able to say like, nah, we're collective in this and we're actually experiencing this together, and our resistance and the way we're going to overcome this is going to be together, because that is who we are ancestrally, that's in our roots. And then again, the third component that we really draw when we talk about radical healing, and it could look like circles, but it also looks like this space. This tonight was a radical healing space. And I cannot emphasize that enough, is that centering the voice of the folks who are impacted, who have been impacted, who have been harmed, who are doing the work of empowerment and creating space for belonging, right? And our brains are naturally, we were talking about this earlier, our brains are naturally wired for that piece of belonging. That is in our DNA. Even if you are someone who's like, yo, I'm an introvert, I don't really like hanging with a lot of people, I keep a small circle. You still want to feel belonging in that small circle. You still want to feel belonging in your workplace, in your place of school, your place of business, whatever the case might be. Our brain is by science, by DNA, by design, rooted for this feeling of belonging. And so when we think about radical healing, it's about creating spaces of belonging and spaces that affirm that identity, and it affirms who we are as people, who our ancestral knowledge is, who our ancestors are, that are both, because I'm a believer that we have ancestors that are in the ancestral realm, and I'm also a believer that sometimes our ancestors come back and live in other people through us and speak through other people to us, right? And so in that sense of belonging, we're creating that in different ways where it allows us to tap into that culture. I know Ernesto likes to talk about the healing power of culture, and that's another piece that goes into that, right? When we think about the utilization of culture and radical in centering it in radical healing practice. So I just want to, I know I got a couple more minutes, but I just want to frame it as that in terms of when we talk about radical healing, it's really those pillars, right? It's it being political, it being collectivist, and it's centering voice, belonging, and culture, right? And then beyond that, I mean, there's all types of strategies and tools. This was a radical healing space, cannot emphasize that enough, but we also do the circle-based approach, right? We have the racial healing circle work where we are actually having facilitated dialogues and reflection and discussion around how we've experienced the world based on our identity, based on the things that, the complex identities that we hold and the experiences we've had, and centering that expertise and that experience to being central to our story and to how we experience the world. And also being, more importantly, not just being able to tell our truth, but to listen to the truth of others. So often I feel that folks talk, or excuse me, listen to wait for you to finish so that they can interject. And instead, when we think about what real healing work looks like in a circle dyad, in a circle setting, right? It's really about listening deeply and being able to really hear these stories and be transformed by the stories, and being able to heal as being able to return to your state of being and being able to remember. Again, this idea, it's come up so many times tonight, remembering. And I was like, all right, y'all got my 10 minutes, whatever I was going to talk about, it's come up so many times that it just makes it easy to really have this conversation with y'all, and how that affects things like solidarity and how we actually build bridges to connect to not only one another, because we definitely need that, especially in places like Chicago where we have Black and brown people, but we don't have Black and brown unity, right? We definitely need spaces where we're cultivating space of solidarity with each other, but we also need spaces where we're cultivating those bridges to our past, to our ancestors, and remembering and bringing them into the space with us and letting them help carry and guide us through this work as well. And that is really important when we, in these constructs of healing circles and the work we do of healing-centered engagement, and using that to inform, the bigger picture, which is that we are healing from institutions and practices and policies that have hurt us, but we also don't want to just let those practices, policies, and institutions just continue to remain the norm. We are going to change it, right? And it's a process, and it takes time, and it takes the power of storytelling and the power of narrative therapy and all that good stuff to be able to do that. But I think my time's up, and I don't want to keep folks going. I could go on this forever, but I just want to just highlight, just the importance of radical healing, and again, that this was a space for that. And we can do circles, and there's all types of strategies, whether it's circles, whether it's solidarity building, whether it's your own just storytelling to yourself. I have 2 devices that I'm always recording putting notes into at all times, you know? So like, it's just like whatever you are doing to help yourself heal, right? It's incumbent on us to do that work and to recognize that we heal together and we heal in solidarity with one another. And that is the piece that's gonna allow us to transform these systems.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for sharing. To hear you say, like, this is that radical healing space just affirms what I always feel here and means so much coming from you. And yeah, I also was like, man, wait, but we're debriefing and there's so much more to talk about. But it felt really important to have Stephen share because decolonizing hurts. It's painful. It is physically painful. It is emotionally painful. And we need to be able to take care of ourselves and take care of each other. And also understand that, you know, as we are trying to abolish systems that don't work and we are rejecting them and we're reimagining, like, there are so many gifts that our ancestors have given us that we can turn to do that work. And so I want to share that we are going to have more of these, y'all. There are going to be upcoming interactive discussions in December, March, and June. We want to continue this space because we don't want it to be episodic. Like, we are in it for the long haul. And guess what? If you came tonight, you already El Griot and Arieto Project family. Okay, we cousins already. With some of you, I already am, but like with those that I don't know, like, we are family. If you are interested in joining our weekly meetings where we are with the book, we're talking, we're making sense of them, we're planning and thinking about the next event through what we're reading, please reach out. But otherwise, like, we have all your information. Like I said, like, y'all are part of the family. And share your stories. Like, we're on social media too. Share your stories, share your resources. Like, you know, Johanna said the young lords were the authors of their own story. We don't need to wait for a curriculum, a publisher. We are the publishers. We are the curriculum writers. And we can, like, create that space. So definitely want to encourage you all to share. And so on that note, I am going to pass it over to Sasha Peña.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sasha Peña, and I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker. You've already met him. He was on the panel. And you know that he's a senior in college, and a little bit about what brought him here. So I just want to share a little tidbit about how I met Jose. Jose is a Chicago scholar, and I work at Chicago Scholars, which is a college access and leadership development program. We met a few times, but in July, we had a career event, and he was on video and had like a huge Puerto Rican flag in the back. And I was like, yes, Boricua. And so I was participating in this group with Lily, being a part of the planning sessions, and we talked about how we really wanted youth to be a part of it, because it started as a small group and it grew as we added a bunch of amazing people from all walks of life. And so I sent Jose an email and I said, hey, would you be interested in this? And he was like, yeah, of course. Showed up, and it has been truly amazing getting to know Jose. He is so wise, so thoughtful, and has just brought so much energy and greatness to the group. And so I'm excited for him to lead us through this Puerto Rican obituary. I can't see him, but Jose, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Sasha. I'm so happy to have been brought on to this project. And now I'm going to do a read aloud of a poem, Puerto Rican Obituary by Pedro Petri. And yeah, I hope you guys like it. You know, try to listen for what the poet is trying to say, because it took me a couple times to get into it, but I think that after analyzing it, his message is very powerful. It's a lot about retaining who we are. So here goes. They worked. They were always on time. They were never late. They never spoke back when they were insulted. They worked. They never took days off. They were not on the calendar. They never went on strike without permission. They worked 10 days a week and were only paid for 5. They worked, they worked, they worked, and they died. They died broke. They died owing. They died never knowing what the front entrance of the First National City Bank looks like. Juan, Miguel, Milagros, Olga, Manuel, all died yesterday, today, and will die again tomorrow. Passing their bill collectors on to the next of kin, all died, waiting for the Garden of Eden to open up again under a new management. All died, dreaming about America, waking them up in the middle of the night screaming, Mira, mira, your name is on the winning lottery ticket for $100,000. All died, hating the grocery stores that sold them make-believe steak and bulletproof rice and beans. All died, waiting, dreaming, and hating. Dead Puerto Ricans who never knew they were Puerto Ricans, who never took a coffee break from the 10 Commandments to kill, kill, kill the landlords of the cracked skulls and communicate with their Latino souls. These dreams, these empty dreams from the make-believe bedrooms their parents left them, are the after effects of television programs about the ideal white American family with Black maids and Latino janitors who are well trained to make everyone and the bill collectors laugh at them and the people they represent. And now they are together in the main lobby of the void, addicted to silence, off limits to the wind, confined to warm supremacy in Long Island Cemetery. This is the groovy hereafter. The Protestant collection box was talking so loud and proud about, here lies Juan, here lies Miguel, here lies Milagros, here lies Olga, here lies Manuel, who died yesterday, today, and will die again tomorrow. Always broke, always owing, never knowing that they are beautiful people, never knowing the geography of their complexion. Puerto Rico is a beautiful place. Puerto Ricanos are a beautiful race. If only they had turned off the television and tuned into their own imaginations. If only they had used the white supremacy Bibles for toilet paper purpose and make their Latino souls the only religion of their race. Juan, Miguel, Milagros, Olga, Manuel will right now be doing their own thing, where beautiful people sing and dance and work together, where the wind is a stranger to miserable weather, conditions where you do not need a dictionary to communicate with your people. Aquí se habla español all the time. Aquí you salute your flag first. Aquí there are no dial soap commercials. Aquí everybody smells good. Aquí TV dinners do not have a future. Aquí, the men and women admire, desire, and never get tired of each other. Aquí, que pasa power is what's happening. Aquí, to be called negrito means to be called love. That is the poem.
Y'all get off mute, show some love, chat, do what you gotta do.
That's beautiful.
Okay. There you go. We need the horn. We need the wepa horn.
Yeah, reggaeton horn.
Yes.
Wait, do people
The
know?
whippa?
Do people actually know that that poem is translated in like 100 languages, and Pedro Pietri performed it at the church that the Young Lords occupied in 1969? That was his first public performance of this incredible spoken word poetry, the predecessor of hip hop.
And I know Jose's got I know he's got mom here, he's got family.
That's my son. Just want to say that.
Beautiful.
I'm a sister.
Beautiful.
Not watching the debate?
All right, y'all. I don't know if you're going to watch the debates, but I'm going to hang out with Sadie Woods as Afrodjia. She is about to spin her magic. If you can stay, we want to continue being in community, because my ancestors and so many of our ancestors, like, they cleanse their spirits, they strengthen through music and dance and celebrating together. So that's what we want to make sure that we create space for. And if you need to go, like, it has been such a blessing and such a gift to be here with everyone. We'll be having more, and can't wait to have you back, and just want to send love to you all.
I want to send love to you, Lily, because this was your vision and you put this together, and I just want to acknowledge you for putting this together and for bringing it is to have your vision and dream for it, and this was dope. This was dope. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a crew.
Quick round of applause. A round of applause for Lily for bringing us all together tonight. Give it up for her.
Yes.
We love you, Miss Cruz.
Oh, I love you, girl.
Truly, thank you, Lily. You really brought the spirit and dedication, and you stuck with it. And this is one of the most inspiring conversations I've had. It filled my soul. Thank you.
Thank you. It took all of us. So yes, thank you.
Lily, can I add a statement?
Yes, I know who you are too, Papi Cortez.
Thank you. I just want to say I've been moved by all your conversation and experience here tonight. I didn't know what to expect, but I'm here in Chicago. We're with the Puerto Rican Culture Center. We can say we're like an offshoot of the Young Lords, even though we took a sort of different path. But I was in the gang like Chacha Jiménez, and when the Young Lords came to us to politicize us in the south side of Chicago, we rejected the Young Lords back in the days. And then we embraced what they were doing later on. And Puerto Rican Culture Center in Chicago has 47 years of existence that we celebrated, and we celebrated the first transgender center now on September 23rd, the Grito de Lares, and we celebrated the new mobile van for HIV, Hep C, and sexually transmitted disease infections, dedicated to Ricardo Jiménez, which was also in prison, 1980, and that van will be traveling all over Chicago. So there's plenty of work to be done. We've been moved by the example of George Floyd and his killing by police. And in spite of COVID, the people are still organizing and standing up. And in Puerto Rico, July 25th, 2019, 1 million people went out to the streets. And there's no organization, no specific leaders. So everybody can put their part. So thank you all.
Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Noemi is a gift to all of us. I see her strength in you. I see you in her. And like, we just all appreciate who you are and everything that you do and have done, and continue to do. Like, that's how we learn and we watch and we want to, and we get inspired to keep doing the work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sadie, get it.
My bed now. The weather outside now correct weather. That kind of cold, freezing weather. We're gonna make your battery charge extra. I say everything the correct order. The girl fine, I mean she's so fine, no. Our body, now wahala. Don't stop. She said, squeeze me now, now. She said, love me, baby, don't stop. She said, squeeze me now, vengan todos a bailar con mi ritmo tropical. Vengan todos a San Juan con mi ritmo tropical. Vengan todos a bailar con mi ritmo tropical. Vengan todos a San Juan con mi ritmo tropical. Si tú quieres vacilar, candela te voy a dar. Si tú quieres vacilar, candela te voy a dar. Si tú quieres vacilar, candela te voy a dar. Si tú quieres vacilar, candela te voy a dar.
calor da sua pele. Eu quero te beijar na praia, no sol, quando a lua nasce. Eu quero sentir o calor da sua pele. Tudo bem? Eu quero te beijar na praia. Me deixe, por favor. Saudade do sol. Saudade da lua. Saudade das noites na praia. Eu quero te beijar na praia, no sol. Quando a lua nasce, eu quero te beijar. Tudo bem?
Tudo bem. cantando la herencia latina.